Cora 7. A forgotten place once filled with dreams of peace between humans and alien species. Now, it was just silence, wind, and shadows. The research base stood like an empty skeleton, broken and lifeless. Years ago, it had been a place of learning and friendship. But after a solar flare storm hit this region, the colony was shut down. Many thought everyone here had died or left long ago. Elias had not expected to return. He was older now, tired. He only came as part of a new mission to clean up the ruins and recover anything important. His orders were simple: search, document, leave. But as he walked past the damaged gates, something unexpected caught his eye. A movement, small, quick, like someone hiding. Elias stopped. He slowly raised his hand to his earpiece. Control, I see. Something. Might be a drone or an animal, going to check it out. Copy that, Commander, came the soft voice from the shuttle. He stepped carefully through the broken walls of the living quarters. Sunlight shone through cracked windows. Old beds, dusty chairs, and pieces of paper were scattered across the floor. A memory flickered in his mind. Children laughing, drawing on the walls, playing music in different languages. Then he saw her, a girl, not human. She sat curled in the corner of the room, hidden behind an old storage crate. Her skin shimmered like starlight, soft silver and pale blue. Her eyes were large, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her hair was short, a light lavender color, and floated slightly as if gravity was unsure what to do with it. Elias froze. She looked at him but didn't move. She held something tightly in her small hands. Her breathing was calm, not afraid, but waiting. He slowly crouched down, showing her he meant no harm. It's okay, he said softly. I'm not here to hurt you. She blinked, studying his face. Her gaze moved down to his chest where his current dog tags hung. Then her fingers curled around the ones she was holding and gently lifted them for him to see. Elias's heart skipped a beat. He knew those dog tags. They were his, the older pair, the ones he had lost on a mission nearly 10 years ago. He leaned closer, eyes wide as she held them out to him like a treasure. Where did you get these? He whispered. The girl tilted her head slightly, as if remembering. She looked down, touching the metal tag softly, then touched her chest. She didn't speak, but her eyes were full of something deep. A memory. A connection. Elias gently took the tags from her hands, holding them like a lost piece of his past. These weren't just tags. They were part of a time he had almost forgotten, a project where he had once taught alien children, read them stories, and told them about Earth. It was a short, hopeful time. Then everything had ended too fast. The girl stood slowly, still, quiet. She was thin but not weak. Her eyes didn't show fear, only patience. You were here, Elias said, more to himself than to her. You remember me? She nodded once. The dog tags clinked softly in his hand. Back then, he had given those tags to a child, one of the students, as a gift. It was meant to be a symbol, something simple, a reminder that someone from Earth cared. Now, years later, that same child had grown. She had survived. She had kept them. Elias swallowed hard. The air felt heavier. He looked at her again. What's your name? She opened her mouth, but only a soft sound came. A mix of human and alien tones. Then she pointed to herself and drew a small pattern on the dusty floor with her finger. 4 simple shapes. Lyra? Elias guessed. She smiled, just a little. But it was enough. Lyra, he repeated with more confidence. She touched the tags again, then touched his arm. Her skin was warm, smooth. Elias felt something stir in his chest. Not fear, not confusion, but a strange warmth. A kind of peace. There were still so many questions. How had she survived? Why was she alone? And why? Why did she still carry something from him after all these years? Elias looked at the broken windows, the dusty sky beyond, and then back at the girl. No matter what happened next, he knew one thing for sure. This was not the end of a mission. It was the beginning of something much bigger. And it started with a silent girl, a lost pair of dog tags, and a forgotten promise that someone had kept when no one else did. Commander Elias sat beside Lyra inside the shuttle, watching her closely as they flew away from the ruins of Moon Cora 7. She didn't say much, but her eyes scanned everything around her, the walls, the lights, the soft hum of the ship's engine. It had probably been a long time since she had seen anything like this. He wanted to ask so many questions, but he didn't want to scare her. She was still quiet, careful, like someone who had learned not to trust too quickly. The pilot, a young officer named Rowan, gave Elias a sideways glance. You really think she survived there all this time? Alone? Elias nodded slowly. Somehow. Yes. She had food, water, maybe some working tech underground. She's smart and determined. Rowan looked at Lyra through the rear mirror. She doesn't look dangerous. She isn't, Elias said firmly. Lyra sat calmly, holding a small piece of cloth in her hands. It looked like part of a blanket, old and faded. She rubbed it between her fingers like a comfort object. Elias looked down at the dog tags she had returned to him. They felt heavy now, not because of the metal, but because of the meaning. He still couldn't believe she had kept them, all these years. Back at the orbital med bay, Lyra was taken gently to the observation wing. Doctors ran simple tests, not to hurt her, but to check if she was healthy. She didn't resist, but she didn't speak either. Elias stood outside the glass, watching. She seemed so small in the large white room, yet her presence felt powerful, like she carried an untold story inside her. Later that evening, Elias sat in his quarters, searching through old files. He typed her name, Lyra, into the archives. At first, nothing came up. Then he narrowed. The Search Project Unity, year 2195. Location, Moon Cora 7. The screen blinked, then opened a set of locked files. He entered his old authorization code. Success. Images filled the screen, videos, mission logs, names. Elias stared at the faces of alien children, many smiling, some shy, some curious. He remembered reading to them, teaching them words, showing them Earth music. It had been a peaceful mission, a hopeful one. And then, it had ended. He clicked on a short video. His younger self appeared, sitting cross-legged in a classroom with 5 small children gathered around him. One of them was Lyra, much younger, her eyes still glowing but her face full of wonder. Elias leaned closer to the screen. Do you want to learn a human word today? The younger Elias asked in the video. The children giggled. He pointed to the dog tags hanging from his neck. This is my name. It tells people who I am. Would you like one too? Tiny hands reached forward with excitement. Then the video ended. Elias stared at the black screen. That moment, so small, had meant something to her. She had held on to those tags like a treasure. Suddenly, a soft knock came at the door. Lyra stood there. She looked at him, then stepped inside quietly. Her fingers moved in the air, drawing a familiar pattern. He remembered it. It was how she used to ask. Story? He smiled gently. You still remember? She nodded. He opened a small projector on the desk and played another recording. This, one showing the children learning about Earth animals. Lyra watched with quiet focus, then looked at him with a question in her eyes. You want to know? What happened? He guessed. She nodded again, this time slower. Elias sighed. The project was stopped. People got scared. They said we were moving too fast, that maybe it wasn't safe to mix our worlds too closely. He paused. They said the solar flare destroyed everything. They believed everyone was gone. We didn't know anyone survived. Lyra looked down at the cloth in her hands. I'm sorry. Elias said softly. Her eyes met his again. She lifted a hand and touched his chest, right where his new dog tags rested. Then she touched her own heart. I kept it, she said, voice rough but clear. Because you gave it with care. Elias felt a lump in his throat. You remembered that? He asked. She nodded. You told us. We belong. He remembered saying that. He used to repeat it often like a promise. You belong. With us. You are not alone. But when the project ended, he had forgotten his own words. He had returned to Earth. The world had moved on, and these children, these bright, beautiful lives had been left behind. How did you survive? He asked gently. Lyra thought for a long moment, then drew something in the air. Circles, lines, a shape he remembered. The underground shelter. You hid? He said. She nodded. Were there others? Lyra hesitated, then shook her head slowly. Elias closed his eyes. So she had been alone. All that time. You're safe now, he said. I promise. She looked at him. Promise. Again. He placed the old dog tags in her hand. I never should have broken it. She closed her fingers around the metal, holding it close. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the children, the ones he never got to say goodbye to, the ones who might have survived, like Lyra. Or maybe didn't. Commander Elias Grant stepped off the ramp of the small landing shuttle. His boots crunched against the dusty surface of Moon. He didn't cry, but his chest felt heavy, like a door had opened to a part of him that had been shut for years. Lyra had remembered his words, held onto hope, held onto a simple gift, while he had almost forgotten that any of it mattered. But now he knew better, and he would not forget again. The space station floated quietly above the pale surface of Moon Cora 7. Inside, the lights were soft, the air clean, and the mood calm. But for Commander Elias Grant, something inside him was stirring. He had spent most of the night going through old files, trying to remember everything about the Unity project. He had taught those children. He had believed in that mission, and now Lyra was the only one left. At least that's what they thought. But Lyra knew more than she was saying. The next morning, she came to him carrying a small, round stone with strange lines carved into it. She placed it gently on the table between them and looked at him with deep, glowing eyes. Follow, she said softly. Elias didn't ask questions. He stood, grabbed his jacket, and followed her through the halls. She moved quickly but with purpose, like someone who had waited a long time for this moment. They took a transport pod down to the Moon's surface again. Elias had gotten special permission from Command for one more visit. Lyra had been quiet. During the ride, her hands holding the stone close. Once they landed, she led him back through the ruins, past the old walls and broken towers, past places where voices once echoed and children once laughed. Finally, they stopped at a place Elias had never entered before. It was hidden behind a pile of collapsed metal and dust. Lyra touched a panel in the wall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small light blinked and a door slid open with a soft hiss. A secret entrance. Elias followed her inside. The hallway was dark but clean, not broken like the rest of the base. Lights along the walls turned on one by one as they walked deeper. Lyra held the stone like a key, and soon they reached a heavy door made of smooth, dark metal. She placed the stone into a round opening. It glowed, and the door opened slowly. Inside was a room unlike any Elias had seen. It was a memory vault. Holograms filled the air, floating images of children, teachers, lessons, and songs. Lyra walked among them, her eyes bright. She pointed to a recording near the center of the room. It was Elias. A younger version of him sat on the ground, surrounded by the alien children. He was reading a story about a brave bird that crossed stars to find its lost home. The recording played, "You may look different, but you belong." Not just here, but everywhere. Always remember that. Elias felt his throat tighten. He had forgotten about this recording. He had said those words with hope back then, but never knew how much they would mean. Lyra touched the hologram gently, then turned to him. "This is what we kept," she said. "What you gave." "You remembered all this?" Elias asked. She nodded. "It helped us stay strong when others left." Elias looked around. There were more recordings, some showing the children learning to write, playing music, drawing pictures of Earth. He paused at one screen. It showed Lyra, maybe 7 years old, standing in front of a wall covered in drawings. She was holding his dog tags in her small hands. The voice in the recording asked, "Why do you wear them?" Lyra replied, "Because they mean I am not forgotten." Elias turned away from the image, rubbing his eyes. He hadn't cried in years, but now the feeling was too strong. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know that you remembered so much. I thought maybe it was just a mission, just a job." Lyra stepped beside him. "We remembered everything," she said. He took a deep breath. "Are there others? Did any of the other children survive?" Lyra looked down. "Some stayed. Some left. I do not know where they went. The vault was for all of us, in case we ever came back." Elias looked at the glowing walls. This wasn't just a memory vault, it was a message. A message from the past, waiting for someone to find it. She led him to a final recording. This one was different. It was from himself, but private, not for the children. In the recording, Elias looked tired, sad. This might be the last log. "They're shutting down the project. I don't agree with it, but there's nothing I can do. If you ever find this, I want you to know I tried. I tried to make this place a home." He paused in the recording, then held up the dog tags. "These I gave to Lyra. She's brave. She'll carry the light when the rest of us forget." Elias stared at the image. He had forgotten he ever recorded that. But Lyra had not. She had carried that light, and she had waited. Not for rescue, but for remembrance. As they left the vault, Elias turned to her. "We're going to take this back. The stories, the recordings, everything." Lyra looked up, unsure. "People need to see this," Elias said. "They need to remember what we started, what we promised." She smiled softly, and for the first time since he met her again, she looked like the little girl from the recordings, hopeful, whole. They stepped back into the light of the moon, but something had changed. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was the beginning of a return. Back on the orbiting space station, Elias walked into the mission center with a small case in his hands. Inside it was something powerful, something that had been hidden for years. The memory stone, recordings, and messages from the secret vault Lyra had shown him. He placed the case gently on the table in front of the station's council. "I found this in the ruins of Cora 7, he said. "It's a memory vault. Stories, lessons, images, proof that the Unity Project meant something, that it worked." The room fell silent. Some looked surprised, others confused. Elias stepped aside and pressed a button. The hologram of young Lyra appeared in the air, speaking softly. "They gave us names. They taught us words. They said we belong." The council members watched without blinking. Some leaned forward, others looked down. The message was simple, but powerful. When the clip ended, Elias spoke again. "There were children there, students, and one of them survived. She's here. Her name is Lyra." He paused, glancing at the door. "She waited for us," he said. "Not for help, not for rescue, but for someone to remember." That evening, the recordings were shared across the space station. Soon they reached Earth. People began watching the old videos, teachers, parents, journalists, soldiers, the words of the children, their drawings, their laughter. It touched hearts. And the girl with silver blue skin, wearing a pair of old Earth dog tags, became the symbol of something lost and found again. While this happened, Lyra stayed in a small room at the station, looking out the window. It was her first time seeing stars from space, not just from the moon's surface. She placed the dog tags gently on the table beside her bed. Elias entered quietly. "You're a hero down there," he said with a smile. "People are calling you the last child of unity." Lyra tilted her head. "Hero?" "It means someone brave," Elias said. "Someone who stands for something good." Lyra looked at the stars. "I am not brave. I was only remembering." Elias sat beside her. "Sometimes remembering is the bravest thing." She was quiet for a moment, then looked at him. "You remembered too." He nodded. "Not soon enough, but I will never forget again." Lyra took a breath. "The others, they may still be out there." Elias looked at her closely. "You think they survived?" "Maybe not all," she said softly. "But some left before the storm. They said they would find a new place. Far." Elias's mind began to race. If more children had survived and escaped the flare. "Where did they go? Did they leave you behind?" he asked gently. Lyra looked down. "I stayed to guard the stories. Someone had to." Elias felt a deep respect for the young girl. She had made a choice, alone and young, to stay behind and protect the memory of what they built. "Then we need to find them," Elias said. "If any of the others are still alive, they deserve to know they're not forgotten." Lyra nodded slowly. In the days that followed, Elias requested a special mission, a search through the outer zones beyond Moon Cora 7. It was risky. The path was full of unstable signals, floating debris from old stations, and small black zones where scanners didn't work. But he was determined. Lyra joined him. She insisted. "Your words," she reminded him. "We belong. That means together." Elias smiled. "All right then. Let's find them." The ship they used was small, fast, and quiet. It was just Elias, Lyra, and 2 crew members, pilot, Rowan and engineer Tali, both curious about the mission and respectful of Lyra. As the ship moved through the dark regions of space, Lyra sat near the window, sometimes closing her eyes, sometimes drawing shapes in the air. She said she was remembering the way they traveled. "Follow the white lights," she said once. "They use them to mark the way." At first the crew didn't understand. Then they saw it. Small flashes of white light, like soft beacons floating between pieces of old satellites and rock. Not natural, not random. "These were left on purpose," Rowan said, eyes wide. "Like a trail." Elias looked at Lyra. "You knew this was here." She nodded. "They wanted to be found." They followed the trail for hours, then a day, then 2. Finally, they reached something unusual. A small satellite, a new one, not human-made, floated gently above a rocky moon. It glowed with energy, and as they approached, it activated. A message played. It was a recording. A voice, childlike but older, spoke in both alien and English. "If you are from the stars and you remember unity, follow the lights to where the song sleeps." Lyra gasped softly. "That's Miko's voice." "Another child from the project?" Elias asked. She nodded. "He was the oldest. He said he would find us a new home." Elias turned to the crew. "We're not alone. They're out there." The lights blinked again, showing the direction of the next trail. And just like that, the search had turned into a mission of hope. A mission of return. As the ship moved forward, Lyra stood at the front window, dog tags in her hand, eyes full of quiet strength. She was not alone, not anymore. The ship, Starfinder, moved silently through dark space. Elias stood near the window beside Lyra, watching the stars drift past like glowing dust. The trail of lights continued ahead, soft, white beacons floating just far enough apart to guide them. They had been following these lights for days. "You think we're close?" Elias asked quietly. Lyra didn't answer right away. Her eyes were locked on the path ahead, her hands holding the dog tags again. Finally, she nodded. I feel it, she said softly. Their hearts, their song. Elias didn't fully understand what she meant by song, but he had learned not to question her feelings. Lyra's memory, her connection to the others, was stronger than any scanner. Behind them, Rowan the pilot gave a soft whistle. I've never seen navigation like this. Whoever left these signals, they knew what they were doing. Engineer Tali leaned closer to her screen. Commander, I'm picking up a strange energy reading. Not dangerous, but old. Like a signal hidden. Inside a song. Elias stepped forward. A song? Tali played a small piece of the signal. A soft melody filled the ship. A tune made of gentle notes repeating slowly. It was beautiful and simple, like a lullaby. Lyra's eyes widened. She whispered, "That's our sleep song." Sleep song? Elias asked. When we were little, Lyra explained, our teacher sang this to help us sleep. Miko remembered it, he used it as a guide. Suddenly Rowan pointed ahead. Commander, I see something. Out the window a shape began to appear. At first just a shadow against the stars. But as they drew closer it took form. A station, hidden within an asteroid field. It was not large, but it was alive. Lights blinked along its edges. Small gardens glowed under domes. A symbol shone on its side, a circle wrapped in wings, the sign of unity. Lyra placed her hand on the glass, tears building in her eyes. They made it, she whispered. They really made it. Elias gave a quiet nod. Let's bring you home. The Starfinder docked slowly. The entrance opened, and warm yellow light spilled in. A soft voice came through the speakers. Identity confirmed. Welcome, Lyra of the Circle. The crew looked surprised. They knew she would come, Tali said. Lyra stepped forward. She did not rush. Her steps were steady, full of silent strength. Elias walked beside her. Inside, the air smelled clean and fresh. Strange flowers grew in small gardens along the halls. Soft music played from hidden speakers, the same tune they had heard in space. Soon, figures appeared, tall and thin, with glowing eyes and soft robes. They were older now, but Elias could see the children they once were. One of them stepped forward. His skin was light blue with silver lines. Lyra? He asked gently. She smiled. Miko. The two embraced like siblings who had waited their whole lives for this moment. I kept the vault, Lyra said, and I followed the stars. Miko replied. Elias stepped forward. I'm Commander Elias Grant. Miko smiled warmly. We remember you, teacher. Elias blinked. He hadn't expected that word. You made us laugh, another voice said. A girl with short hair and bright green eyes stepped closer. You told us we were more than experiments. You gave me this name, said another, touching a bracelet. It means hope in your language. Elias looked at all of them, his heart full. I thought we failed you. Miko shook his head. You gave us the beginning. That was enough. Later they sat in a circle in the garden dome. The stars above shone through the glass ceiling. The Unity children, now grown, shared stories of how they escaped the moon, how they built this place, and how they had waited for someone to remember. We left clues, said Miko. But we never knew if anyone would find them. Lyra stayed behind, Elias said. She remembered everything. She kept the promise. They all looked at her with quiet respect. You are the guardian now, one of them said. Lyra shook her head and looked at Elias. He is the one who returned. Elias raised his hands. No, I forgot. You didn't. You held on when we didn't. No, Miko said. You came back. That matters. There was silence for a moment. Then Miko stood and walked to a small control panel. He touched it and a large wall lit up. Images filled the space. Videos, photos, music, messages from Earth. Elias recognized them. The memory vault Lyra had saved had been uploaded here. You brought the stories, Miko said. So we are not hidden anymore. Lyra looked at Elias. Now, others will know. Elias stood slowly. Yes, they will. And if they're wise, they'll listen. That night, Elias walked alone in the garden while the others slept. He looked up at the stars and thought of all that had happened. He remembered the first time he met Lyra as a child. She had been quiet then too, but always listening, always learning. And now, she had grown into someone strong, someone brave. He heard soft steps behind him. It was Lyra. I couldn't sleep, she said. Me either, Elias replied. She sat beside him on the bench. For a while they just listened to the quiet song playing through the dome. Then Lyra said, You once said, we belong. I remember, Elias replied. It's true, she said. We do. He nodded. Yes, you belong. All of you. And the world needs to know it. She handed him the dog tags again. These were yours, she said. He took them, held them in his hand for a moment, then reached forward. No, he said gently. They're yours now. She looked surprised. You carried them through the dark, he said. You earned them. Lyra looked down at the tags. Then, slowly, she placed them around her neck. The small sound of metal touching metal echoed through the garden. Elias smiled. Looks better on you anyway. The station called Haven felt like a dream. Elias walked its quiet halls with wonder. Everything inside was made with care. Small gardens grew where children once played. Music drifted softly in the air. The people, here, once children of a forgotten experiment, had made something beautiful. Lyra walked beside Elias, still wearing the dog tags. Each step she took was steady and sure. Here, she was not alone, she was home, but there was still one more place left to see. There's something I want to show you, Miko said one morning. His voice was calm, but his eyes held a secret. He led them to a part of the station no one had entered in years. The hallway was quiet, covered in glowing vines. At the end was a door shaped like a half-moon. Miko placed his hand on the door and it opened with a soft hum. Inside was a large round room filled with floating lights. In the center was a sphere made of glass and silver. Inside the sphere was a crystal glowing with soft white light. This, Miko said, is the heart of the unity. Elias stepped closer. What does it do? Miko smiled. It remembers. He placed his hand on the glass and the sphere lit up. Images floated around them. Faces, voices, drawings, songs. Not just from Lyra or the other children, but from humans too. Scientists, soldiers, teachers. Even Elias saw his younger self, laughing with the children years ago. The Unity Project wasn't just about learning, Miko said. It was about understanding, connection. This crystal stored every feeling, every lesson, every word. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She reached out and touched the glass too. A soft voice echoed in the room. Lyra. Elias. If you are hearing, we did something good. It was the voice of Dr. Elira Mayan, the woman who started the Unity Project. She had taught both humans and alien children together, believing peace was possible. We built this together. Even if it doesn't last, I hope someone remembers. I hope someone returns. The message ended, and silence filled the room. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. Then he said, We're here, Doctor. We remember. That night, the people of Haven gathered in the garden dome. It was a special day. They called it the Night of Return. It was the first time in many years someone from Earth had come back. There were lights in the trees, food on the tables, music in the air. The children danced while the elders sang songs from long ago. Lyra stood near the center, her silver blue skin glowing in the soft light. Elias watched her, proud and quiet. She looks happy, Tali said, walking up beside him. She is, Elias replied. She found her family. And what about you? She asked. Elias looked up at the stars. I think I found something, too. Rowan laughed nearby, sitting with a group of Unity children who were teaching him a strange alien game that used stones and light. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was together. For a few hours, it felt like the galaxy wasn't broken. It felt like peace was possible. Later, Lyra walked over to Elias with Miko beside her. We have a request, Miko said. Elias raised an eyebrow. A request? We want to share the heart of the Unity with Earth, Lyra said. With everyone. Elias looked at the glowing crystal in the distance. Are you sure? It's part of your history. Miko nodded. That's why. It's time people learn what we built together. Elias placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. Then we'll bring it home. 2 days later, the Starfinder left Haven carrying a special package, the heart of the Unity, carefully sealed and protected. Lyra stood beside it, not nervous but proud. This will change everything, Elias said as they passed the last beacon light. Lyra nodded. It already has. Back on the space station near Earth, the Council prepared for the broadcast. Either heart of the Unity was placed in a public dome, where everyone could see it. Elias and Lyra stood beside it as the cameras went live. The whole world was watching. Elias stepped forward. Years ago, the Unity project was closed. People said it, failed, but they were wrong. He paused. One child remembered. One child waited. And now the truth has returned. He stepped aside. Lyra touched the crystal. A wave of light spread through the room, and the heart activated. Images danced in the air, children laughing, learning, sharing, humans and aliens together. No fighting, no fear, just connection. And then came the voices. Teachers, caretakers, children, all saying the same message in different ways. We are not so different. We belong. Together. People across Earth watched in silence. Some cried, some smiled. Others just listened. It was simple, it was powerful, it was real. In the days that followed, messages flooded the space station. People wanted to learn. Scientists asked to study the heart. Teachers asked to teach its stories. Even leaders sent letters, asking to speak to Lyra. But she didn't want to be a star or a leader. She only wanted to be herself. One evening she sat with Elias near the Earthview window. You think the world is ready? She asked. Elias smiled. Maybe not all of it, but enough. She touched the dog tags around her neck. Then we helped the rest get ready. He nodded. Together. She looked up at him. Teacher? Yes? I want to go back. Back to Haven. There's still more to do. Elias grinned. Then we go. The stars stretched across space like silver dust, quiet and endless. The Starfinder moved gently among them, returning once more to Haven, the secret station where the children of the Unity Project had built a life from memories and dreams. Lyra stood at the front window, her eyes steady and full of peace. The dog tags around her neck caught the light with each small movement. Beside her stood Elias, older now but with new hope in his heart. They were not just returning to a place, they were returning to a promise. As the ship came closer, the lights of Haven blinked in welcome. The landing docks opened like arms ready to embrace old friends. They're waiting, Lyra said softly. They always are, Elias replied. When they stepped off the ship, dozens of familiar faces met them. Miko, Tali, Rowan, and the others who had once lived in hiding now stood in the open. But this time they were not alone. Visitors had come. People from Earth, scientists, students, diplomats, and even children had arrived to learn, to help, and to listen. This place is no longer forgotten, Miko said, his smile wide. It is a bridge now. Elias looked around. He saw humans speaking with Unity children, sharing stories and laughter. It felt unreal. Only a few months ago, most people had never heard of the Unity Project. Now it was alive again. And it was growing. Later that day, a special gathering was held in the Circle Hall, the heart of Haven. Everyone was there, old and new, human and alien. The heart of the Unity crystal stood glowing in the center of the room, slowly turning, casting soft light on everyone's faces. Lyra stepped forward to speak. She looked around, her voice calm but strong. A long time ago, we were left behind, not by cruelty but by fear. The world was afraid of what we might become. People listened closely. No one spoke. But someone came back, she said, looking at Elias. He reminded us we were not mistakes, we were not forgotten. Elias lowered his head, eyes full. We were children, Lyra continued. We only wanted to belong. And now we do. Because of all of you who chose to listen, who chose to remember, who chose to return. She stepped aside and Elias took her place. I once believed I failed these children, he said. I thought the project ended in silence, but the truth is it never ended, it only waited. He looked at Lyra. She carried more than just my dog tags. She carried the heart of what we all forgot. Hope. The crowd stood in silence. Some smiled, some wiped their eyes. The message was clear. The Unity Project had never died. It had only needed time to bloom. In the following weeks, Haven became more than just a hidden station. It became a new kind of academy, a place for both human and alien students to learn together. Not just science or language, but kindness, respect, and understanding. Elias stayed to teach once more, but this time, not as a soldier or a guardian, just as a guide. He told stories, helped build new gardens, and even taught children how to, play chess. Lyra worked beside him, now as a leader among her people. She helped write the first Unity Scroll, a book of values for future generations. It didn't have laws. It had lessons. One day, a small girl from Earth asked Lyra why she wore dog tags. Lyra smiled gently and kneeled beside her. These belong to my first teacher, she said. He wore them when he protected us. When I thought I was alone, I held them close. She paused. They helped me remember who I was, and that someone believed in me. The little girl touched the tags. They're special. Yes, Lyra said. Very special. Back on Earth, the world continued to change. The story of Lyra and the Unity children reached millions. Some people doubted, some feared, but many more were inspired. More Unity academies were planned, across Earth and nearby colonies. The heart of the Unity was copied into smaller crystals so the message could be shared everywhere. Peace talks between alien races and humans grew stronger. Trust returned slowly but surely, all because one girl never gave up. On the one-year anniversary of the return, a large celebration was held across Haven and Earth. Flags flew, bells rang, songs were shared, but at the heart of it all was one quiet moment. Lyra and Elias stood alone on a hill near the edge of the station. The stars above were bright and endless. It's beautiful, Elias said, watching the sky. It always was, Lyra replied. She held the dog tags in her hand. Will you ever take them off? Elias asked gently. Lyra thought for a moment. Then she said, No. Why? She smiled. Because they remind me where I came from and who helped me stand. Elias looked at her, his eyes full of pride. You helped yourself, he said. Not alone, she replied. They stood together in the silence of space, under the stars that had watched everything from the beginning. And then, softly, Lyra began to hum a tune, the same sleeping song from long ago. Elias joined her, his voice quiet and sure. It was the song of memory, the song of return, the song of unity, the end.